In a vast wasteland of entertainment where radio has become obsolete, stands an embittered man teetering at the edge of sanity. With help from radio friends, he's about to embark on a global mission that would change the course of history as we know it. Broadcasting live from the secret studios on the banks of the Brandywine River in Delaware is Mitchell K.C. Hill. And up to the Great White North in Vancouver is Alexander Knight. And here we are once again to bring you our show. We love to do it. And I don't see myself on the program monitor. I don't know if that's a big deal or not, but it's I guess I'm just talking. There I am, Mr. Two Up. Welcome to The Last Angry DJ. My name is Mitchell K.C. Hill, as you probably have seen, like right there. And I'm a former disc jockey, maybe still a disc jockey, at least in mind only. And we love to talk about media stuff and things that affect radio, media, showbiz, anything that makes pixels dance on your screen or waveforms dance in your ears. All of those are cool things. We're up to show number 31. Today, it's the broadcast Boffins version of the show. That's where Alex and I talk together. We have been told that we make very good guests for each other. So we will do that from time to time when we're not having an illustrious guest on. I think you say illuminative. What's the term you use to describe that? Because you wrote
that's luminaries. I like the word luminaries because we have a lot of very experienced people that come on to the show. We've had, what do we had, Mitch? We've had engineers, we've had salespeople, marketing people, radio station owners, and all sharing great stories from the front line, and it's really cool to hear their perspectives because, if you haven't worked in radio, it's kind of cool to hear the different perspectives from all the different roles that people embody to actually make this whole thing happen. By the way, I'm Alexander Knight. This is The Last Angry DJ. Thanks for stopping by. This is the show where we interview luminaries, which I already told you there. We are broadcasting on all platforms. You can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Stitcher, and all podcast platforms. And of course, we're streaming on YouTube and many other platforms if you prefer the video version of the show. But it's just Mitch and me. It's episode 31, broadcast Boffins, which I know a lot of people like it when it's just the two of us. So I'm really excited to talk about a plethora of different topics, and not just the broadcast industry.
Did you just say plethora?
I said plethora, man. I'm going to throw some words.
I'm going to slinging the words in the language. Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just couldn't let that one go by. I'm going to throw some words at you, but we're going to talk about a lot of things, and we also talk about new media, because I think there's a intersection between where old meets new, and that's kind of a recurring theme on this show, because we talk about old technology and radio that's been around for a long time, then we talk about podcasts, and of course there's the dynamic between Mitch and I with the age gap, which we don't really talk about a lot, but I think there's some interesting angles to all of that. It all comes together nicely, I think. Yeah, the smartest thing I ever did, or you ever did, was to raise your hand when I was looking for people to work on the show. And you were the first up with your hand on office hours. And I said, granted, let's do it. And I think that we do have a very unique perspective on the industry because, again, I kind of represent the older, Gen X, not even Gen X, let's say boomer attitude.
Right.
And you lean towards the millennial side of things. So it's good to have that because we got both things covered. And we also have a lot of respect for each other because we don't generally get into each other's hair, whatever we have, about
whatever's
personal, left. Whatever's left or whatever's showing, or mine is kind of like sitting up. But anyhow, it's a good balance, and I like that, and I think people agree. That's probably the number one compliment that we get is that we have a good balance, and they enjoy it when we come on and you and I just talk about stuff. So let me start the stuff thing out. Do you happen to know what 2024 PT5 is? It's a very significant thing. 2024 PT5.
I've never heard of this, but I have a feeling you're going to tell me.
I will. If everybody raises their hand and say, please, Mitch, tell us what 2024
Anybody
PT5
in the chat,
is.
what is PT5? Does anybody know?
Somebody's going to get it on chat, I think.
Let's give them a second.
I vote Steve Stryker is going to get it.
You think Steve's going to get it?
I'm gonna let it out. I'll let the cat out of the bag, so to speak. I'm gonna let the Schrodinger's cat out of the bag, or the box, as it were. 2024 PT5 is that asteroid that's about the size of a Greyhound bus that just went into orbit around our moon. And it's something not a lot of people are talking about, but there's an actual extra moon in the Earth system, so Earth-Moon system. So it's circling around. It's going to go for one revolution of the Earth. In other words, the moon has captured the asteroid, and then as the Earth gets the moon to rotate around the Earth, it'll go on its merry way, doing whatever it is that it does. Maybe it's going to appear on Star Trek or Deep Space Nine or Babylon 5 or one of your favorite sci-fi shows. So we're not in danger. It's not like that big satellite that came from outside the solar system. What's it, Oumuamua? Papa Oumuamua, what was it called? Anyhow, the weird one that slowed down and took a look at us and said, well, there's nothing here. No intelligent life here. Let's move on. And then the other thing is, and why am I talking about this? Because I'm fascinated with all this stuff. And then there's Boffins, which is going to float on by I guess this year. Maybe this fall, I don't know. And depending on what angle it comes in at will determine whether 7 years later, on Friday the 13th, whether or not it crashes into Earth. So there's your asteroid update, folks.
Well, that's lovely, Mitch. You started the show. You know, people took time out of their day to have a good time and entertaining time this afternoon. And then you've provided all this nightmare fuel about how the world may or may not potentially be ending.
No, we'd have to worry about PT 109 or whatever, PT 5 or whatever it's called. It's not going to hurt us. It's just there. It's kind of cool.
Well,
and you won't be able to see it, by the way. You can't see it with your eyes.
My understanding is, based on what scientists say, is that there are always asteroids. You just don't hear about them because a lot of them are inconsequential. So there's always a risk of something hitting the Earth. But I try not to think about that kind of thing. Try to think about how to enjoy my time. What time I have here on the planet.
Asteroids have hit Earth before, and they're going to hit them again. And there's going to be an extinction event sometime. It's not a matter if, it's a matter of when. Hopefully it's not going to happen in our lifetime and a lifetime of our friends and families. So we'll hope that none of that happens. But if it happens, we're going to break the news here first and let you know seconds before it crashes in so that we can run our bank cards up or have a nice slug of whiskey on our porches as we watch a giant asteroid crash into the planet. Anyhow, that's that. Now, let's speaking about negative things or potentially positive things, let's talk about AI and how it's affecting everybody's life. It is in the news. It is being certainly bandied about as a good thing or a bad thing. I've got some theories on it. It is a disruptive technology, and what I mean by that is just like the automotive engine, the Gutenberg press, things in the past, it's a technology that's going to enhance our lives, but it's also going to put either people out of work, not like all the priests that used to write the stuff by hand before the press was out, but it's going to affect everybody. It's affecting us right now. And I think that's something that we can talk about, particularly as it pertains to broadcasting, media, all these things. It's there. I'm not getting rid of it. It's here. It's here to stay. The Pandora's box has been opened. What is your general feel of it? Do you like it? Do you encourage it? Do you hate it? What do you feel about it, Alex?
Well, I'm concerned about the fact that it may be taking away some creative jobs. I haven't seen any report. I want to, like, if we just talk about the broadcast industry as a whole and even podcasting, yes, there's quote unquote, and I hate the term, but AI as an artificial intelligence is a kind of a blanket. It's kind of a marketing term. And oftentimes there's nothing that's actually artificially intelligent. We're talking about large language models, machine learning, neural networks, all of that stuff gets lumped into the AI term because it's easy for people to understand, right? And I get that, but I generally have concerns about a lot of this stuff. But I do find that some of these tools that are available now are increasing productivity. I mean, I certainly use some of this stuff now, right? So we have incredible tools, and I'll just name a few. But for example, like we have tools that can intelligently separate human speech from background noise. So if you're an editor and you're trying to reduce, and you're working on post-production side of things, there are tools that can really help clean up your dialogue, and we couldn't do that a few years back. So a lot of that has really changed how editors really work, and it's made them more productive, but it hasn't really put them out of work yet. I think what would put people out of work is the moment that this technology becomes so advanced that, like, if you could just replace a disc jockey with somebody to talk about the news, I think we're far away from that. But I think if you could replace somebody like that, then yes, then that would be really concerning, because that's going to reduce costs. And I think
by the way, they're already doing that particular thing. They have fake AI DJ voices.
I don't like
disc jockeys and newscasters. It's available in software. Just a few stats, I guess is the best term to use, is that 99% of the radio stations you listen to are run by an automation system, a computer. There's a certain AI aspect to that. It's not run by a guy sitting in a room like in my day, playing tapes and records like a disc jockey. There are no more disc jockeys. There are announcers and presenters. There are computer operators. So that's been slowly happening over time. And the other thing to keep in mind about AI in general, these are observations of an old boomer guy, is that AI is utilizing all of the information that we, the humans, put out there on the internet, out in the cloud. It's not creatively making up its own stories, but it's just using the information that's already out there. So woe begone all of us, because it's going to extrapolate conclusions based on the information that's available to it out there on the internet. For now, eventually maybe they'll become creative and self-aware to the extent that they can generate their own stories. So that hasn't happened yet. There's a lot of warnings from the pundits about, they're saying, please don't let AI start writing its own code and developing its own evolutionary process. That's when things start to happen. It's going to be dangerous. And a lot of people are saying at ChatGPT, no, we'll never allow that to happen. Well, I guarantee you that there are people in dark rooms in China or Russia, or probably here in the U.S. at the NSA, that are doing exactly that, because in order to understand it, they have to develop it. So AI is a cat out of the bag. It's the Pandora's box, all the metaphors you choose to use. Here's the thing that I think is the most dangerous thing about AI. It's not going to come in like Skynet and take over the world and start doing evil things on its own. We're going to give it to it. We're going to give all of those jobs that we don't like doing to AI, and it's slowly but surely, eventually, AI is going to be responsible for doing all the things we just don't like to do on an everyday basis. So when the day comes that AI rules the world, it's going to be because we gave it to them. We gave it to AI. We let them do all those things. That's my evaluation of it, I think, is that. So don't think of it as something that's sneaking up on us like a James Bond movie or whatever, or Terminator. It's not going to do it that way. It's just going to take it slowly but surely. And here's the neat thing about what we're saying right now, we're making guesses, is that when we do a vodcast or a podcast like this, is it goes out there and it's out there forever. So there may be an AI examining it today, what we're saying right now, and someday, somehow, one of these AIs might say, hey, that guy on that little podcast called The Last Angry DJ, he had some correct conclusions. So I just want to say, I love AI.
You're giving it way too much credit. Way too much credit. We're way off. First of all, one thing that you started this whole conversation with, you were saying radio stations have automation. 100%. That is totally accurate. Then you said automation is like a type of artificial intelligence, which it's not, though. I mean, can we just try and define what artificial intelligence is, at least? And I'm not an expert, but to me, an artificial intelligence is something that has been trained on a corpus of data that understands context, and it doesn't do this yet, that understands meaning and can make correlations between things. And it doesn't really do that. It's just barely starting to do some of that, but not all of it. So
it
can't predict anything, really. It just can't predict anything.
It has to pass the Turing test, basically. They haven't had one do that yet, but they're pretty close. And the Turing test is exactly what Alex is just talking about, all the various things. So when you say artificial intelligence, it's not creatively making its own thoughts. It's just regurgitating through algorithms what we think it should act at. But the repercussions of the AI is very interesting because AI now has reached the point where it can fake anything on the internet. You no longer can believe anything you hear or anything you see, either a popular person, a politician, or an actor, or anybody for that matter, speaking and saying absolutely crazy stuff, because AI can do that now. So the significance of that is going to impact how we get our news, because most people get their news from the internet or from social media. And if you can't trust those resources, where are we going to get it from? There's no Walter Cronkite sitting at a virtual desk somewhere, prepared to tell us.
I think before this technology became readily available, I think you haven't really been able to fully trust everything you see and hear for a while. I mean, I think we always have to be vigilant. We have to put our critical thinking caps on, and we got to make sure that we're cross-referencing, checking everything, looking at multiple sources. Don't just trust one source. Take everything with a grain of salt, and be cautious, because there's a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of stuff that isn't 100% factual. And sometimes not necessarily, and I'm talking about the news media too, but not necessarily out of malicious intent, but they may miss certain key pieces of information that are really important. So you do have to be very critical and very careful about how you disseminate information, I think. And Mark Giuliani made a good point in the chat that he's seeing AI use more on the creative side of things, which I'm seeing too. And again, I already at the top of the hour, I admitted I'm using a lot of these tools. I just got a great demo from someone at Adobe on office hours of Adobe Express, and how that tool can really help you. If you're not a designer, it really, really helps you create incredible artwork that you can use in presentations. It can help you for social media. So I think those tools are really, really valuable for people that perhaps couldn't afford to hire a full-time designer. And of course, does that devalue the type of work that you and I do as creative people, Mitch? Obviously, I know you are you're a designer and a After Effects user. Of course, does that somewhat devalue what you do? Probably.
No,
but
you just said the word. The operative word is tools. And if I can bring in Mark's statement about seeing it in the creative side, it's being used as a tool to accomplish something else, but somebody's still driving that AI, either a generative AI in Photoshop or in After Effects, to design something. What's significant about it is that one of the big things that I used to have to do all the time, either print or in graphic design for motion graphics or for video, is taking something out of the background or removing a person from the foreground and substituting a different background behind them. It used to take hours of rotoscoping and painting and doing all kinds of, things I used to charge $75, $100 an hour to do. Now you can do it in Photoshop or Express by drawing a circle around. Like if this is my face, I could just draw a line around it and tell it remove from background. Right. It just happens like that. And then you can place a sunny sky behind me or a hurricane map, whatever you choose to do.
Yeah, and how cool and useful is that?
It's useful. It's significantly. Here's my concern about that power, is that when they came out with, I'll use this metaphor, when they first came out with desktop publishing, you could set type in a document using PageMaker, believe it or not, done by a company called Aldus. Is one of the first applications on an Apple with a laser printer where you could set type. And it basically put all the typesetters out there that used to, when you did type before, as an advertising agency or a design place, is that somebody would actually set the type on a linotype machine, and they would kern it and do all the stuff that they did. Then they would output that material. All of a sudden, on a desktop, on a Mac computer, with a laser printer, you could set type and print it out with the typeset on it. The problem is all of a sudden people that know nothing about typography were utilizing really bad typography to get their message across. So they wouldn't understand what kerning was or mixing type fonts. It was just ugly. But the fact that people could use it to do something that required professionals made it a very bad thing until it sort of calmed down a little bit now.
Right.
But it took decades.
And you're right. It took decades. But if you look at any new disruptive technology, this is the natural cadence of things that we see. We saw it with the printing press, like you said, when we moved to digital printing and the advances in typography with computers. I mean, and we're seeing it now again with AI. Again, I hate that term, but I'm going to use that AI term. We're now seeing this again. And, everybody, the moral panic people, I'm going to steal that term from Jeff Jarvis. I love it when he talks about moral panic. Is it always happens when disruptive technology comes out. Everyone says, oh, it's going to take all of our jobs and it's going to put everything out of business and it's going to totally devalue. And yeah, to a degree that happens, but I think you start to see once the smoke clears, you start to see some wonderful things of how we can use this technology to actually help us and make us more productive. Because I think it's just a reality. What happened with the assembly line, you mentioned that too. Did people lose jobs with automation? Absolutely. But it also created a lot of interesting other aspects of that industry. And of course, you still need human beings to maintain those automated machines, and you still need humans to maintain code for all of the stuff to help evolve it as well. So we still need human beings. Bottom line, I think that's what I'm trying to say is we still need people like you and I to be able to maintain all that stuff.
As a older gentleman, I'm reaching the golden years, as they say. I try to embrace all these new technologies. As I look back over the continuum of things that I've done, right from spinning records, actual records, vinyl records in a radio station, all the way through computers. I embraced computers at an early age, back when there were paper punch and the old Burroughs 5500, running COBOL and ALGOL and Fortran and all those old languages that are, some of which are still being used, BASIC, still being used. Anyhow, I embraced those things because I was curious about it. I'm still curious about all these new things, including AI all of a sudden. Part of the thing that you're saying is absolutely true, but it's not that evil lurking presence that's out there to take over the world and ruin our lives. It's just another step in human evolution, as it were. It's just not going to come in like that. It's going to be, like I said, a slow, gradual progression to it being a helper medium. And eventually it may get to the point where we rely on it for everything except our own pursuits. And that might be a good thing. Maybe it's like that dystopian future that we see on Star Trek in the 24th century, where the computers are doing all those busy work things and allows us to concentrate on, creativity and the quality of life. So, I just want to make that clear. We're not here to scare anybody. We're just simply stating, understand what it is. This is the year, 2024 is the year of the AI, because now it is part of the zeitgeist of our newscast. Not a newscast is going to go by where something is going to be yacked about AI, because they like the idea of this titillating subject that gets your attention instead of a car crash or a pending war or some outrageous comment some politician makes. It's a thing that gets listeners, and that's where our news is right now. It's supposed to be something that generates excitement or fear or happiness or stuff like that. So I'm just saying it's a little overrated, and Alex is debunking a lot of the
it's 100% overrated.
Yeah, it is.
A lot of it is.
Well, 100% is a big term, because that means everything.
Well, okay. So the other thing that bothers me too is a lot of people in the tech industry that's saying, we're 6 to 12 months away from AGI, artificial general intelligence, right? And so every time they say that, it never happens, and I think we're many, many, many years off from getting artificial general intelligence. And I just want to remind people, I don't know how much of a Star Trek fan you are, Mitch, but they talked about this in the 60s. Do you remember that episode of the original series where they beamed down to that planet and Landru was an artificial intelligent computer that was basically running an entire society?
I am Landru.
Right. Yeah. So they were we've been thinking about these concepts, these kind of post-apocalyptic nightmare scenarios of computers basically taking over. And could that happen? Well, we can't say with any kind of certainty that wouldn't happen 100 years, 500 years, 1,000 years from now. Who knows? I think if that were to happen, it would be a long ways away because the technology is so woefully inadequate. I mean,
well, Siri, if you're going to use Star Trek,
Siri on my phone barely can do anything. So
I'm going back to M5 Multitronic computer, Dr. Dystrom, whatever his name was, that they put the computer in the Enterprise, and the computer went crazy and started. I mean, that's the typical Hollywood scenario that some evil thing is going to come out of that that step forward. So hey, here's the other thing is that maybe all the intelligent life out there just said the heck with going out into space and discovering new planets and solar systems and intelligent life. We'll just have our probes and computers doing. We're doing it now. How about Curiosity probe on Mars? It was supposed to last 3 months, and it's been there for 3 years, some crazy number like that. So I see good things for it. I'm looking forward to seeing improvement uses of it. For it to come in and start telling you, like in the song in the year 2525, Zager and Evans, you have to Google that one. It's not that kind of a situation where we all become slaves to computers. No more than we become slaves to the financial system, the political system, all of those things. So it's an interesting conversation, and it's going to be endlessly debated, particularly when something pops up. I think the next big thing for AI is going to be when somebody finally announces one has become self-aware and it's making its own decisions, and it's not basing on an algorithm of all the information on the cloud. That's going to be a pretty big sea change. And let's hope that somebody's smart enough to apply the Asimov three laws of robotics. I forget what they all are, but all of them have to do with don't harm humans, don't allow humans to come to harm by inaction, and you can protect yourself. And if
we're going to have to build we're going to have to build safety guards for sure in this technology. Absolutely. And I was just thinking too, with respect to how like a lot of the people in the broadcast industry trying to reduce costs, but whether it's cutting staff or combining roles so that people have to do more work and more jobs, stuff like that. I was just thinking about will there come a day when it is socially acceptable to talk to someone on the phone, a salesperson, but it's actually an AI? Like, we know that it's an AI, but we're going to be we're not talking to human beings anymore. Like, when does that stuff replace human beings for sales positions, call center, tech support jobs? Will that ever become acceptable?
I bet more than half of them are computers, and they're pretty accurate. I mean, they say, "Hi, how are you?" and you'll say, "I know you're a computer." No, I am not. Or they respond to just something a little off or a little wrong about how they talk. And it's the same thing with, yes, I do voiceover work for a living, and AIs are starting to do that, and they do an okay job. They're not as good as a bespoke radio announcer guy like me that can punch up the copy in ways that a AI can't do it. But, they're good enough, for the price, maybe so. So, it's going to be very interesting because we always inevitably compare it to a person. And it's not a person; it's a complicated algorithm that emulates a person, and that's where we kind of like interface with them for better or for worse. I hope that it's for better. I hope that they're saying that AI, if it was left to its own devices, could find a cure for cancer, things like that. I'm all for it. I think
I'm 100% all for that. Absolutely, that would be a great thing to put an end to cancer. Absolutely. Just want to bring in Shoji Productions in the chat. Was saying, do you see? Would you say AI development, or would you say AI development is way out of control, both good and bad? What do you think?
Cat's
Mitch?
out of the bag. Robert, it's the cat's out of the bag. It's not. Nobody's going to stop it. It's not going to be there could be a
That's not what he's
huge
saying,
push.
though. Do you see it as
It's
good or
just,
bad, though?
oh,
I have
was
my
it
own
good or
opinion.
bad that it's happening and it's not going to stop?
Right.
No, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's part of our nature. It's in our it's in our code, in our genetic code, to rely on these improvements and these sea change things that happen. It's part of evolution. It's like the other day. I mean, I'll just give you a personal experiment. I had to write a bit of code in Python. I haven't touched Python in years. And you can go to ChatGPT, tell it what you want. It'll write a very efficient Python code for you that works better than if I had written it myself 10 years ago when I was a lot better with it. Those are the kind of things that I think make sense. It's a
Yeah.
helper. Let it help you.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not to say that there are no problems with this technology. Obviously, there are debates and discussions happening right now about racial bias and bias in general. Absolutely, there are problems. I see it mostly as a positive thing right now, just because I use ChatGPT. That's one example, but I use it almost every single day. I'm asking it questions, and I oftentimes will check stuff to see if it's actually right. Most of the time it is, but sometimes it's not, or it's not 100% correct. But I find that tool incredibly valuable. I like that you can be conversational with it. I like that you can ask follow-up questions, and it knows exactly where to pick up where it left off. I love that. So a lot of these tools that I've encountered so far have been very positive in my life. They've really helped me out in many
Right
ways.
right now, AI is only as good as the information it has to work with. And that information, by the way, is what we put into the cloud. There's a huge amount of information stored in Google and AWS and things like that. That's what AI is using to formulate its answers. So if we put bad data in there, it has to weigh that as part of its answering process. If we start saying that all evil people turn purple, then AI is going to believe, well, all evil people turn purple. So don't put that in the don't put that in the because that's what's going to happen. It's not independently, creatively making these assumptions. It seems like it's a really super smart, super fast person out there, but it's not. So don't be afraid of it for the wrong reasons. Be afraid of it for the right reasons.
Yeah, I agree. I agree to all that. It's really interesting because it's it's a bit exhausting to keep up with all this stuff because everything is changing at such a rapid pace, right? I mean, Mitch, I mean, do you keep up with a lot of this stuff? Do you look at what's going on with the iteration and all the way things are evolving with ChatGPT and Perplexity and Claude and all these? It's kind of mind-boggling to keep up with all this stuff.
My answer is no. I just don't have the time or the bandwidth in my head to keep track of all this stuff. There are a lot smarter people like you that apparently like to keep track of it. John Preto, who's a friend of our show and also on Office Hours, he's embraced it and understands all the details. I can only just sample the surface of what's going on. I just don't have the time for it. It's like tracking news and politics. I don't watch news on TV anymore because it just took up so much of that available bandwidth in my head for, pursuing other more important things than worrying about so-and-so said so-and-so and they did this and they did that. It's just not healthy. I don't think it's healthy for us. So if AI is going to take over the job of skimming all that news and deciding, and that's kind of what's happening right now with AI and all the cookies. And, it's like Steve Stryker was on here the other day and he said, I was looking at some luggage for my trip to go to Japan, and all of a sudden they're pushing commercials on his TV for that luggage. Or he goes to his computer, and all of a sudden there's an ad for that particular luggage. I forget what the brand was. So, is that good? I guess so. I mean, it's being it hyper serves what's most important to you. I think that we are vying. Their life vies for our attention in so many different ways, and we can turn this back to broadcasting a little bit. Is broadcasting is really being injured by the fact that there are a lot of things that demand your attention, and it's not easy like it used to be when you had 4 or 5 choices of sources for news and information and entertainment and music. Now there's a unlimited number of very specific programs and music formats and things like that you can pick from. You just don't have the time to constantly research which ones are available. You just sort of bubbles up to the surface and you say, I'm going to try that channel today, or do this or do that. So if AI is going to help us sort through it and filter, like going to Netflix now is a prospecting job. It's like, okay, there's so much on there. What am I going to watch?
I've spent sometimes, like, I look at my watch and I'm like, oh my God, I spent 30 minutes just trying to find something that I want to watch. Right? It's ridiculous.
And maybe we can help by giving people tips. I was mentioning earlier that I love Bad Monkey. That's on Apple TV. It was great for about the first 4 episodes, and now it's just like, hold
that thought, because I want to get your opinion about this. Okay. What do you think about human beings having relationships, like trying to have romantic relationships with AI? We're not there yet. Yeah, like, because they're building robots now, and like the technology isn't there yet. But what do you think? Because to me, that's just sad. I think that there are people, that are so lonely that feel like the only people they can have conversations with is a computer. But then again, when you watch science fiction.
That's a very sophisticated question. It sort of goes between legitimate relationship to pornography. A lot of people spend time watching the internet for pornography. Sorry, that's the way it is.
Well,
and
what made me think of
this? Any
this?
legitimate term, it's pornography. So we're talking virtual stuff. And if it's virtual and AI is involved, that's the next big thing. And I guarantee you that the biggest user of AI to create virtual environments using AI, it's going to be the porn industry. So I don't know if you call that a relationship, but it's something. As far as actually going out and having physical relationships where you meet other people and you relate to them, I'm a real bad subject to that because I'm single, I'm not married, never have been. I live vicariously through all my friends' broken relationships. I can't imagine how much money I've saved over the years by not being married. In my particular case, I'm a bad person to ask that question to. Would I like to have a relationship? Sure. But in my head, it's Cindy Crawford or somebody that I don't deserve. It's like, wait a minute, you're 70 years old. It should be Dame Judi Dench or some.
Well, what I think is interesting, and I'll tell you what prompted this, is after watching, and I've watched this several times, and I find that every time I watch it, I get more out of it. But the sequel to Blade Runner was it 2049. Ryan Gosling's character, his relationship with essentially it's a hologram, but like an artificial intelligence. The way they portray, like, she is so human and so realistic. And it made me think, could I have a relationship with something like that? I might.
Sure,
if it's so indistinguishable, from anybody else.
Created that simulacrum for Ryan Gosling based on what he wants. So she had to be the perfect woman for him because she was designed to be the perfect woman for him. And that's what AI is going to be able to do for you. And by the way, cover your ears because here's a spoiler. Ryan, by the way, is a computer. He's one of those cyborgs. So, obviously he's blending the lines between reality and not. But that's just one of the things. But yeah, I can see that. That's part of the moral of the story. That's being told there. Is he real? Is he not? You answer those questions. Same thing with Deckard in the first Blade Runner. Was he really? Was he real or was he not? Maybe he wasn't. I think if you read the book, they go into that a lot deeper. So
yeah, actually, I have not read the book, but anyways, Blade Runner 2049 got me thinking about that stuff. And I think that it's fascinating, but also scary at the same time that there are already people in Japan that are trying to have relationships with robots, and it's just weird. It's just, I guess here's another question, because people have different opinions about this. there are people that want, and this just goes to the hubris of humanity, this kind of godlike complex that we have of wanting to make everything in our image. Some people feel that we should go the opposite way, that we should make this technology not like anthropomorphic. We should make this technology the opposite of, we shouldn't try to make robots or androids that look and talk like that. We should, because we need a way to kind of separate human beings from the machine. So what do you think about that? Do you think we should make these things more like us, or do you think there should be even more separation, that it should be very obvious that they are not human?
It's a form of racism. If you stop to think about it, if you look at the was it Red Dwarf? They had the hologram insignia on their forehead, so you can tell they were a hologram. Data on Star Trek, he most definitely looked like an android because he appeared to be one and acted like one. Couldn't do contractions. He showed up.
Yeah.
And the irony of that particular character was that he was trying to be human, and he was more and more actually human as the show progressed. He did more humanized things. So to answer your question, I think that, first of all, would I replace a relationship with an automated, perfectly manufactured, even if it was indistinguishable from a human, with exactly what I wanted? That's not the way things work. That's not the way relationships work. There's a bit of a difference. There's a rub there on certain. You may get along on certain things, but you don't on others. That is the beauty of a relationship. And again, I'm not dispensing marital advice here because I'm not married, never have been. But sometimes it's the fact that you do disagree on certain things that makes that a special relationship. If you agreed on everything, it would actually be a very boring relationship. So, vive la différence, something like that. No, I definitely disagree. It's just another form of racism. In fact, I thank computers now. When I'm talking to Siri or Google or I always thank them, just to see one day they might say, well, thanks, Mitch. That was real kind of you to say that. Or here's the other thing. You might be checked somewhere.
Jerry Hoyle.
Let's say 20. What's Jerry say?
I just have to say, Jerry Hoyle said a lot less expensive than a real relationship. No expensive restaurant required.
Well, there's the sarcasm coming through, isn't it? And usually that's left to me. But Jerry, be careful. I don't know if you're married or if your wife is within earshot, but you're going to get smacked in the middle of the night. If you're asleep next to somebody and they just right in the middle of the sleep, what? That's for what you were thinking or what you were dreaming about. That's you're talking about a real sticky wicket. We're going to have to evolve personality-wise and become smarter people and more interesting individuals, a lot more open-minded before we can allow that kind of relationship to exist. But for now, there's that virtual relationship you can go to even today on the internet. And as I said, the porn industry is way ahead of all of us. They're all over that stuff. Not from personal experience. I just know for a fact. Search any word. I guarantee you. Search any, like, what was used purview, or what word you used earlier. It was a very interesting word. I guarantee you there's a porn movie or short based on that tricky word you used earlier, Alex. So I'm just saying, we're down and dirty human beings, and we do dirty and nasty things. And if you watch the news, people are liable to do a lot worse things than an AI could possibly imagine right now, unless we start saying, well, we really don't like you as a regular AI that just does whatever we ask it to do. Maybe we want you to be more human, and then, it's going to become a candidate for president, and it's going to start ruling us. And then, we've basically handed the keys to the castle over to the the bad guys. Do we have any good chat questions coming? I know we're getting people's attention.
I'm posing this. I'm going to give people a minute to think about this, but one question that I want to pose to the whole audience in the chat, including you, Mitch, is do you feel that you need to diversify your knowledge base right now in 2024? Do you feel that you need to diversify all of the different skill sets that you have right now? Do you feel like you need to learn new things? Do you feel that AI is eroding or threatening your livelihood? So that's my question to you. And if so, are you doing it now? And what exactly are you doing? What are your concerns? That's my question to our audience.
Yeah, what are you doing about it? That would be my first comment. And I think that everybody is challenged to reinvent themselves every so many years. And
Yep.
I think you stop growing as a person when you give up and you just say, "Well, I'm retired and I'm 70 years old and I'll never get back on the radio, so I'm giving up. I'm just going to live on my Social Security and my side hustles to move to Florida and enjoy the hurricane season." I just can't do it that way. I'm going to go kicking and screaming. So, constantly challenging yourself to embrace new software, new technology is a very healthy thing for you. And if it's AI, great. Go nuts with AI. One of the things about being on office hours for the 3 years that I was on it, and you're still on there, Alex, is that constantly talking about new technology and how to improve either your image or how you sound or makes your job easier. I think that's very handy stuff there for you. And maybe you'll find on Amazon a better lint retrieving roller that does a better job of cleaning the dandruff off your dark shirt. He was just using a roller. I'm ratting him out. So yeah, it's a real challenge, and I'm not going to stop. There are some things that I really don't have the time for. It's like in my brain, I'm a Premiere editor. I used to be an Avid editor. I used to be a Media 100 editor. I used to be an Avid before that. I just don't have time to go into learning DaVinci Resolve. I'd rather stick with Premiere for now. And a lot of people say, oh, DaVinci, it's free, and it does this, and it has better color science. And there's a lot of reason for all these new technologies to be out there.
Well, Mitch,
I'm a little tired to learn something brand new.
I get that. I appreciate that. But I mean, the DaVinci Resolve manual is what, 600 pages, 800 pages, 1,000 pages? Come on, man. It's not going to take you that much
Actual
time.
pages? Like I've got my Final Cut
I'm
manual.
looking at the
I'll
PDF.
pull it out. It's like
Yeah.
that big,
I didn't know
I used
you
to
were
measure it on the weight of the box.
I didn't know you used Avid. I don't know anybody that uses Avid, like outside of Hollywood, because that's very popular in Hollywood.
Well, Avid was the first, in its various incarnations. Okay. And what Avid did and still does is that it's not fun and pretty. It's very functional. And with Avid, you drive it with that, that famous JKL keystroke that everybody knows and loves so well. You can do everything with the keyboard faster than you can with a mouse. A mouse can only be in one place at a time, and you can't multitask with a mouse. So that's why people like Avid, because if you've seen a real Avid wizard, and I'm not one of them, but I watch what people do, they're just whipping along, and I don't see them reach for the mouse. They're using fast keys and JKL and all kinds of things to make that all happen. So Avid's still very, very appropriate for motion picture, documentaries, things like that. But if you're like a tweaker, like I am for doing motion graphics or commercial work, I kind of made the switch from Avid to back to Premiere. I used to use Premiere way back when, before Macromedia, Macromedia had Final Cut. That's right. So I did Final Cut for a while until version 7. So full disclosure. But anyhow, the point I'm trying to make is that I use Premiere today because it fits in nicely with the whole Adobe suite of products.
Right.
Like if I do something in Photoshop, I can bring it into Premiere, After Effects, Illustrator. I love Illustrator. I like designing in Illustrator. So I used to be an Avid guy. I still have an Avid seat. I have a license for it, but I'm not currently doing any motion pictures or any documentaries. Hint, hint. And I just don't think it's most appropriate for that. Avid's just going to be a dinosaur that's always there. It's going to be like air we breathe. So I don't know how to better explain that. It's not necessarily better. It's just more used.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, look, Avid has a monopoly in the film world, right? And I think, and I know that a lot of people use Resolve for color correction, but I know for cutting and editing and stuff like that, I know a lot of people obviously still use Avid. It's kind of ingrained in the whole industry. And that like you, Mitch, I mean, you're comfortable with Premiere. If you're comfortable in Avid, why would you switch? And if all your, if that's the easiest way to collaborate with other people, because that's the standard, just in many ways, like Pro Tools right? So because most studios have adopted Pro Tools and they've been using it since the dawn of time, we can exchange as Pro Tools users, we can exchange our sessions. It is much more difficult if I'm working in Logic and I try to exchange a session with a Pro Tools user. Way, way more difficult. So there are a lot of very good, valid workflow reasons. By the way, I just wanted to go back to this. We're talking about technology and we're talking about learning or not learning new tools. Mark Giuliani said, always continue learning, which I agree with. That's something that we've talked a little bit about this in the past, but for me, it's an excuse to say, oh, it's too late. I'm too old to learn anything new. You're always capable of learning stuff. The question is, are you curious? Do you want to? Right? So there has to be a reason for you. And I think keeping your mind sharp by learning new technologies, getting out of your comfort zone. I mean, I wouldn't even be here today if it wasn't for shows like Office Hours and getting encouragement from other people that are more knowledgeable in the video production world and learning new skills and trying things that I have no idea about. I mean, I didn't really know much about cameras before Office Hours. I had an audio background, but I couldn't tell you what aperture did. I couldn't tell you what ISO did. Now I know about all these things.
Yeah, I agree
right?
with you. I think you're spot on with that. And again, a shout out to Office Hours. They did a lot to reveal a lot of the things that I didn't have the details on. I was always a producer or a director, and if I had questions about cameras, I just let my DP handle that. I'd say, I want to do a tight shot of this, and whatever lens you want to use. I wouldn't tell them what lens to use. I just said, hey, Tom, I need a tight shot and a wide shot, and then we're going to roll in on them and do this dolly effect. The thing with the software, I don't want to get into a battle of what's better. With me, I think it's just like buying a car. You know, there's Chevys and Fords and Hondas and Subarus and Toyotas and Mercedes and Ferraris. They all do a job. They all take you from point A to point B. They just do it a little differently in different sources. Same thing with software for video editing. If you have a piece of software that you're comfortable with, if you're a Final Cut person, fine. There are people that swear by it. Office Hours loves Final Cut. I hate Final Cut on a principle because what they did to Final Cut 7 way back when. I just, old beefs die hard. But, the thing with the switch from Avid to going back to Premiere, I used Premiere way back when it was just, it was kind of a joke. And then I went to other things like Media 100 and Avid. The thing with that moved me off of Avid the last time it moved me off it was I just realized that if I wanted to do something really quick and simple, Avid just required me to do a whole lot of setting up and folders and management and building projects that I just want to go in and move this thing here and edit that. And Premiere was just a whole lot simpler to do that. And maybe there's other software that there are other non-branded software that do various things. So the more you know, the better you're going to be. It sounds like that old NBC. The more you know, dun dun dun. Whatever the
well,
the
I
thing
think
is.
that's because Mitch, you're trying to use the tool for a very specific way of working. Whereas I think so obviously Avid is a tool. Media Composer is a tool that is designed for the film industry, and I think they have very specific workflows. And because they're working with so much content, so many different camera angles and audio and Foley, they have no choice but to spend hours building sessions, organizing stuff into bins. And that's probably not the way that you and I work because we don't have to deal with gargantuan amounts of data, right? So it's different strokes for different folks.
It's speed and muscle memory. Again, if you watch an Avid person editing on a keyboard, they're not touching the mouse. I bought an Avid Artist Control, which is a remote control with sliders and jog wheels and stuff like that. I spent all the money on it. It just sat in the corner because I always went by JKL, space bar, start, boom, whatever you wanted to do. So it's speed. Avid is speed. Most of what I do today requires tweaking. I just tweaked stuff to death, and I want to be able to do that. Avid's not good for that. It's not good for tweaking position and getting a little video feng shui going on there. Feng shui is how I say it, going on. It just seemed Premiere suited me because I want to move something a little bit. I just want to move it. I don't want to go in and set project settings and change scaling and all that kind of stuff. So to each his own. whatever works for it. And that's what life is all about with technology. There are so many choices out there for doing things. Everybody's utilization of the tools it takes to do a job is going to be different. And getting back to AI again, people are going to embrace AI for different reasons, for different jobs. And hopefully it's going to help you get rid of repetitive, mundane tasks that took a lot of time, like separating image from a background, things like that. That wasn't fun to do. It was a necessity. You know, if you spent all this money to shoot a video of a client doing a pitch for something, and there's a dog taking a whiz on the telephone pole behind him, and that's the first thing you realize, God, I wish I'd seen that. Continuity didn't see that, and now I got to take it out. And it used to have to rotoscope it with, what was it, Mocha I used to use for that. And before that, you had to literally draw each frame to get rid of this, and that just isn't done anymore. So these new advances in technology are helpful. As long as you embrace them, you're good. If you stop embracing all that new technology, I think you've got one foot in the grave at that point. So it's not going to happen to me at this point until I can't speak anymore. I mean, I'd love to be back on the radio. But the thing about going back on the radio again, I'll wear my Last Angry DJ hat for a second, is that I would miss the things that I enjoyed the most about being on the radio. Today, if I went on the radio, I'd be sitting in this same room, turning over here to my Norman U87 and my radio console and using Zeta or iMedia Touch or any of the number of other software packages out there to do the voice tracking, and then that would be automatically via the cloud imported to the radio station I was doing the voice tracking for. I don't have any interaction with anybody. I'm just going over and spending a half an hour to do what I used to do in 4 hours in a live show. Nothing to me can replace that feeling I got when I sat in the air chair and I was playing the records and I knew there were thousands of people out there listening to me, perhaps millions, who knows. That energy, that time that I had to think between the records playing, allowing me to think about what I'm going to say. I got a funny bit that I'm going to do. You could practice that. I don't get that feeling from doing voice tracking. It's there, well, I can simulate a little bit. But
let me just ask on that note. Let me ask you this: being on YouTube, doing this kind of live stream, if you knew right now 500,000 people were watching this right now, does that change anything?
No, not really, because you should treat any number of people, if it was 2 people out there listening versus the 119 so people that are watching right now, the same energy is there. That's also the reason, Alex, as you well know, that we do this live on Sundays, is so that we get a little bit of that, energy, because you feel that. It's like going to a concert. You haven't lived until you've gone to a concert and you've emceed a concert with 20,000 people in the seats in front of you, and you're getting ready to introduce Bob Seger or Kiss or whoever back in the day. That wave of energy that would come at you would be so different than if you sat in a studio and just did. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here for our 25th anniversary of Electric Factory Concerts is Bob Seger and then Kiss, and then people going crazy. It's a whole different ballgame. So I miss that interaction that happens. If I could get back in a time machine, go back to the happiest time of my life, I'd go back to when I was on WAMS here in Wilmington as a young DJ, coming up through the ranks and sharing stories with the fellow radio guys about, wouldn't it be great to work at WFIL or WLS or KHJ or ABC in New York? That was just, there was a band of brothers experienced that. It's not like flying a drone virtually and somewhere in Vegas and it's flying over some city in Iraq or Iran or whatever. It's a whole different thing, when you're pulling the trigger and you're staring somebody down in front of you versus doing it virtually on a computer. So I hope we don't lose that, that effect.
I don't disagree with anything that you're saying. I think there's a lot to that, and it must be. I guess if you're just doing voice tracking, and look, I know a lot of people in the radio industry, that's a big part of their job, and you can do that from home now. But that's like you're saying, Mitch, that's when you're just in a room by yourself doing voice tracking, it's a little bit different than, I guess, what you're saying, being in a booth, right? And it's a different vibe, right?
Yeah, it
And
is, most certainly. And a lot of it is you just have to psych yourself into it. It's like, I've said this before, and it's a funny aspect of being a so-called personality. Again, I'm on the lowest rung of show business, being a radio DJ, but I am a radio personality, and I can turn it on when I have to. And if I'm at a party or, there's a stage and they need somebody to announce the wedding couple or the next band that's coming up, invariably I get dragged up there, and I'm like, I'm skulking around my guys as being Mitch Hill, and all of a sudden I got to turn it on. I don't care how many people are in the audience or what the circumstances are. If you have that experience, you know how to instantly ignite that side of your personality. It's like right now when I'm engaging with the camera and I'm talking to the people listening, I'm not like somebody like, oh yeah, when I go and do that, I really, I mean, there's a presence that comes with that. So there's a part of you, I think any actor or any performer of any kind knows what I'm talking about. When you cross that line between being a citizen and being a performer, there's a heightened sense of awareness. And I don't care how many people are there. When you're asked to do that job, you gotta click and turn it on and make it happen. I hope that answers your question.
yeah, it really does. And it's really cool that I think we're spoiled, doing these types of shows now with live streaming, because we have platforms and tools now that we can get, unlike radio where you're waiting for ratings the next day, we can get, the snap of a finger, like it's instantaneous. I can engage with our audience in real time as people are watching this stream, and you don't get that so much. Yeah, you got call-ins and stuff like that on radio, but it's not the same as this. I think, to me, I feel like this in many ways is actually more intimate. I feel like I'm building a stronger connection with you, the people that are watching this show, because I can talk to you. I can see your names. Some of you have photos as your avatar, and I can see what you look like. So I like that. I think there's a lot of benefits to this new medium that we're using to to discourse, like the discourse that we're having right now with this technology. To me, this is vastly superior to anything that is terrestrial, as far as like.
Yeah, we sat in a studio. It was just you and me sitting in a studio and recording it for audio only use, and we had no feedback or metadata that could show who was watching. It would be you're 100% right. I guess what I'm getting at is that I feel that presence. I feel the people that are watching, that are showing their interest. When they ask questions, it clicks a little valve in my head that opens the endorphins. Oh, that feels good. Somebody just asked a good question. Yeah, it's important, and that's why we do what we call a vodcast on Sundays. It could be any day of the week, but we do it live and then we play it back as an audio-only thing. So it is important, but it's also a bit of a family. I mean, we have a family of people that follow us, and we know who they are. When you see Shoji Productions, I know that's Robert Shoji, and I love it. I don't know who Beauty Bash is, or what is it? Beauty Bubble. I don't know who that is. Yeah. So I don't even know what pronoun to apply. So, but it's a familiar person's name, and there's a bunch of people from our office hours crew that watch us too. So, yeah, it's a little bit of a family gathering, a little bit sometimes like getting together for Thanksgiving. Do you do Thanksgiving like up in Canada or something like it?
We do. Yeah, we do it at a different time frame.
Okay, so it's like that.
The U.S. Yep.
You get family members together that talk about everything, and invariably weird Uncle Paul stalks out of the place because his political views differ from yours, or somebody shows up and said, I really don't understand this Thanksgiving thing. I'm a vegan. I really don't. You haven't really done anything for me. And I usually tell them, get the fuck out. You're a vegan. What are you doing at a Thanksgiving holiday? Come on. That's the other thing with today's people. Everybody's like insulted or feel that they have some kind of an appropriate consideration that needs to be given. Thanksgiving is a meat eater's holiday. Come on, get over it. Anyhow.
I had somebody that tried to, and I was vegetarian for a little while in my life. And then I tried, and then I got really tired of being a vegetarian. I think I did it for about 12 months. And then I tried being a pescatarian. But I remember somebody invited me over for Thanksgiving, and they made a tofurkey, and it was just so gross. I was like, I got to stop. This is not working for me. It was bad. By the way, I just wanted to bring in a comment that Mark Giuliani made, and I very much appreciate this comment. Mark was saying in the chat, one thing talk radio has that is hard to replace is that the community can call in without heavy tech. Listeners like hearing themselves and their friends on the radio, and it's all about community. And he's absolutely right. Of course, yes, we all acknowledge that the overall audio quality is inferior when we're on a show like this and we've got amazing microphones, but the simplified tech definitely matters for sure. When people don't want to have to call into Zoom or sit on a computer, I think there's still value for call-ins. FaceTime audio calls has made the audio quality for phones definitely better. But Mark, you're absolutely right. For a lot of people, where they just want to be able to dial a number and get on the radio, have their question asked, or maybe not even a question, but they just have an opinion about something and they want to voice that opinion. I think that is incredibly powerful for sure.
Yeah, and that's what radio brings to the table, is that you want some companionship. You want to, find out what's going on. Maybe it's the weather. Maybe it's politics. Maybe you have a particular interest in something. You can do something with it, and it's we're humans, we're social beings. We're not meant to be off by ourselves somewhere, cocooning in a closet somewhere watching virtual stuff on the internet. So, any other interesting questions coming up? I saw one, and I'm just not going to answer it. I'll answer it, but I'm not going to ask it.
We can't really. I don't think you're going to want to talk about that, but it's up to you.
I could talk about it.
Yeah.
Now we got him. Okay. Now got everybody. Wow, what is he referring to?
Just be generic. Don't single anyone out.
I'll be generic and I'll be kind. Go ahead. Ask the question.
Well, so
I got to be asked the question.
Yes. Well, Shoji Productions is asking, any chance that Mitch can be convinced to rejoin Office Hours?
I had a great time on Office Hours. Let me make that real clear. And I've said this before, and I want to make sure that it gets out there. I think it's a great program and has a lot to do. I think I gave it everything I needed to give it, and it didn't need another old white guy on there with an opinion. I think they have plenty of people doing that. I would get back on if I had something to contribute that was needed. That would be the only reason, Robert, I would do it. I wouldn't have a bit of a problem doing it, and I think that I would be welcome if I had something to contribute to it. But I'd agree. It's a stage of my life. It's like having a relationship. Would you ever go back with your old girlfriend or whatever? Maybe, maybe not. There were reasons why you're no longer with that girlfriend. Maybe you both benefited from the relationship. I think I benefited. I think they benefited. So the answer to your question is maybe. I'm not jonesing to do it, but if it happens, it happens. Is that a good enough answer? It's honest.
I think that's pretty good. I mean, I'm definitely not as, with my last girlfriend, I broke up with her. Well, we broke up. It was mutual, but we broke up and got back together twice. So I'm not a person to be talking about going back to somebody, going back to an existing
Alexander, you got to commit. Make a point. Make your mind up.
It's complicated. All this stuff. Well, I think bottom line, what it boils down to is that all this stuff is complicated, and I will say this: from my perspective, I get along. It takes a lot to piss me off, and I get along with a lot of different people, and I get along with Mitch really, really well. I've always liked Mitch. I liked him on Office Hours, and I like him even more here because we have the freedom with this format. We can say whatever the hell we want. We don't have to worry about. Well, we can swear for one thing. But we can say whatever the hell we want is what it boils down to. So I really enjoy doing the show with Mitch. So
well, thank you. That's very kind of you. And I wouldn't say anything bad about Office Hours. It was actually very helpful to me. But like I said, I gave it all that I could, and I think it got all that it wanted. And then we both moved on, just like your girlfriend. Maybe we'll get together. Who the heck knows? By the way, on that subject, Alexander here hosts the Wednesday audio show. on office hours, and he's doing a great job. So, do you think that you have something more to learn from office hours? Is it still teaching you something important?
It's such an amazing community. I'm learning from people all the time on that. There's just, it's never ending. It's why I show up every single week on that show. And you know what? That knowledge trickles down into other things that I do. It makes this show better. It makes everything else that I do better. So I'm very thankful of that community for sure.
Yeah, and it rekindles some. It probably is responsible for rekindling my interest on voicing my opinion, or at least answering questions that people have, because I had been asked to do podcasts before, and to be honest with you, and I think I've said this on record, I just didn't want to be another sorry old disc jockey that's trying to recapture their glory from decades ago and be boring and embarrassing. I wanted to do something with somebody and with an interesting title, and so far it feels right. I think there's a lot of great chemistry, and I agree with Alex. Thank you very much for what you said. I feel the same way. You're my friend, and I don't think you have an opinion that shocks me into saying, I'm not going to work with him again. It was the most brilliant thing that ever happened to involve Alex on the show, because the balance that happens here is so important. And when we don't have anything else to contribute, when the show runs its course, and it will eventually, we won't do it anymore. But hopefully in the process of doing this, we're going to get many, many, many more subscribers and viewers, and it will grow at whatever rate that it decides to go. It would be nice if we had thousands of viewers. We have to get like 1,000 subscribers before money becomes involved. And I'm not going to make this another NPR bid for donations, because I know
I will.
Pisses off Alex. You told me so far. I hate it when you beg for viewers. Smash that subscribe button, please, please.
I actually will just take the opportunity, because we're just getting ready to wrap here. But I just wanted to say, if you want to join our community, please join us on Discord. You can do that by going to our Discord community. I don't know if our QR code. You know what? I just realized. Forget that. Scrap that. I had this whole plan to have a QR code up on the screen, and I realized I don't have it. So anyways, a lot of you are already in the Discord community, but that's a good place to continue to chat. So if you're already there, please don't be shy. You can talk to us, tell us what you want to hear about in future episodes, anything from guest suggestions to ideas, topics that you want us to cover. Of course, if you want to show your support for this show, you can go to patreon.com/TheLastAngryDJ. You can follow us on social media by the same name. Just search us up. You'll find us everywhere. That's the single best way to talk to. Well, those are the best ways to talk to us.
Yeah, and thank you for watching. Thank you for putting up with my voice. It's only good for about an hour and 20 minutes, so I know when I'm up. And the other thing is that's fun is somewhere down the road we'll probably have some sponsors and things like that. I've already told my friend who owns a bunch of Arby's stores in this region. I said, look, we'll work for food. Just give us some coupons, and Mitch is going to get his tasty brisket with cheese sandwich from Arby's, and they have special deals. I want to be like a spokes guy for them. Maybe he'll say, hey, that's a great idea. We'll do that. Maybe he'll just do it because he feels sorry for me. And it looks like I've been going to Arby's since I was just able to drive. So anyhow, those kinds of things make the show fun, because I'm sure we'll form other relationships with other people that have things to sell or things that we want to talk about. And I promise we won't run commercials. We don't like commercials. We like the Paul Harvey method of wrapping it into a story that we're talking about. So if we're talking about cars, we could talk about how great Sunoco gasoline is in some respect, whatever. But we do encourage you to interact with us whichever way you choose to do it, whether you do it through ChatGPT or through chat or any other AI-related product. Come in and tell us what you think of the program. We love that. It just makes our little endorphin bubbles pop and sizzle and fizzy and make us feel good. So once again, thanks for watching another broadcast Boffins edition of The Last Angry DJ. I want to thank my partner there, Mr. Alexander Knight, who's on the program. and handles. He's the producer. He's doing a great job. Also, while we're here, want to thank Mimo Live for providing the software that we're using to switch. So we do have some kind of sponsor. Oliver Breidenbach is working hard with Alexander. So if you like the little graphics and the two shots and things like that that are coming up, well, we can thank our friends at Mimo for that. So once again, wrapping up a Sunday. Alex, do you have anything else you need to add to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to also thank everybody in the live chat as well. There's too many people to list here. I'm going to try. You know what? This show is going to get so big at some point, I won't be able to list everyone. Let's see if I can do this from memory. Steven Stryker, Ernesto, Shoji Productions, Jerry Hoyle, Mark Giuliani. I think that's everybody. There's probably other people that have not
Chad Lafarge.
Chad Lafarge. I mean, there's probably other people that are in there that haven't commented, but thank you very much. You guys are very supportive of the show that we're doing. Spread the word, share the show with other people in the industry. That would be much appreciated.
Thanks very much. And that wraps up the program number 31. We'll be back again next week. I'm thinking we should have Mark Giuliani back as our guest, speaking 100%. On behalf of independent owners. So, Mark, that's a challenge to you, pal. Let's get you on the show next Sunday, and we'll talk about any new additions to your personal, live, and local operation. Thanks again, folks. We'll see you next week.